Okay, so get this right. We've got Southern California, and it's January.
Okay.
And there are red flag warnings for wildfires.
Wildfires in January.
Yeah, in SoCal. We are definitely not talking about, like, cozy sweaters and hot cocoa weather.
No, not at all. It's definitely an unusual situation.
Yeah, and we're going to, like, take a deep dive into what's causing this and you know what it means.
Yeah, exactly. I think it raises some interesting questions.
So we found this news article.
Yeah.
It's warning about a big windstorm that's supposed to hit, and honestly, some of the language they use is kind of scary.
Oh, really? Like what?
They're saying things like life-threatening and destructive.
Wow.
They're even predicting wind gusts up to like 80 miles per hour.
80 miles per hour?
Yeah, in some areas.
Yeah.
Even stronger in the mountains.
I can't even imagine.
Right. Like, think about trying to drive in that.
Oh, my gosh.
Right.
Especially if you're in like a big rig or something.
Right. Or like one of those RVs.
Yeah, it'd be a nightmare.
Total chaos on the freeways.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even just down trees and power lines would be a huge problem.
For sure. But I think the scariest part is the fire risk.
Oh, absolutely.
Because usually by January, Southern California's got enough rain that fire season is over.
Yeah, you'd think so.
But this year, it's been like incredibly dry.
It's been bone dry.
Yeah.
And that dryness combined with those strong winds is just a recipe for disaster.
So it's like you've got all this dry brush and trees just waiting to go up in flames.
Exactly. And the wind just acts like a giant bellows.
Yeah.
You know?
And to make matters worse, remember that fire in Malibu last month?
The Franklin fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was awful.
It burned a ton of land and left the whole area super vulnerable.
Absolutely. They're like a tinderbox now.
The article even mentioned that students had to shelter on campus while it was burning.
Oh, wow.
It's scary to think about.
Yeah, it really hits home how dangerous this is.
Yeah, it really does. So, okay, we've got these crazy strong winds, and it's been so dry. And we've got these recent fires that have already made things worse.
Yeah, and that dryness is really key here.
Totally. I was reading that some areas haven't seen significant rain since May.
Since May, wow.
I know, right? And the U.S. Drought Monitor says a big chunk of Southern California is in, like, moderate drought.
Moderate drought, huh?
But I don't know, moderate doesn't really seem to cover it.
I know what you mean. Especially when you think about how long it's been dry.
Yeah, like the effects really add up over time, right?
Absolutely. It's all cumulative.
So it sounds like we've got this weird situation where the north is getting slammed with rain.
Yeah, it's been crazy up there.
But down south, it's like a completely different story.
It's like two different worlds.
Yeah.
It's a really striking example of what we call extreme precipitation disparity.
Extreme precipitation disparity.
Yeah, it's basically what it sounds like.
Yeah.
You get these huge differences in rainfall across a region.
So even though we've had all that rain up north, it hasn't really helped the situation down south.
Unfortunately not. And even the storms that have hit the north have been unusually warm.
Oh, wow.
So even areas that have gotten some rain are drying out faster than normal.
So it's like this perfect storm of conditions for wildfires.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So with all that in mind, I'm honestly most concerned about how quickly a fire could spread once it starts.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about that. Like, how fast are we talking?
Well, with these dry winds whipping through things, could escalate really quickly. A small spark could turn into a massive fire in no time.
Wow.
And what makes it even harder to fight is the terrain. You know those steep canyons and dense vegetation?
Yeah, it's beautiful, but...
Right. But it makes it incredibly difficult to contain a fire.
It's like those images we saw of the Franklin fire racing up those hillsides.
Exactly. It was terrifying.
Totally. So early detection and rapid response are key.
Right. Absolutely. But even with the best firefighters in the world, those winds are going to make things incredibly challenging.
It makes you wonder how often we actually see these kinds of wind-driven fires in January.
Well, historically, they've been pretty rare in Southern California.
Okay.
I mean, since 2016, there have been a few smaller fires, but nothing too crazy.
Gotcha.
But there was that big fire east of LA back in 2014.
Oh, right. I remember hearing about that.
That one destroyed quite a few homes.
So this current red flag warning, which is in effect through Thursday, possibly even Friday.
Right.
That's super unusual for this time of year, right?
It is. It really shows how these changing weather patterns are creating all sorts of new challenges.
So it's not just about this one windstorm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about what this tells us about the future of fire seasons in California.
Are you saying this could become the new normal?
It's definitely a possibility.
Yeah.
As the climate crisis continues, we're likely to see more extreme weather events, and that includes longer and more intense fire seasons.
So what do we do? Like, how do we adapt to that?
Well, on a community level, there are a few things that can help.
Okay.
One is investing in better early warning systems.
Like the red flag warnings?
Exactly. The fact that we're getting those days in advance is huge. It gives people time to prepare.
Charge their phones, stock up on supplies, and figure out their evacuation routes.
Exactly. It's all about being prepared. But it also gives firefighters time to get ready.
Yeah.
They can pre-position resources and come up with plans.
So it's like maximizing our preparedness and response.
Right. And it's not just about reacting to these events as they happen. It's also about taking steps to reduce the risks in the long term.
So being proactive.
Exactly. And that involves a bunch of different things. One is land management. Things like controlled burns and vegetation management.
To reduce the amount of fuel for the fires.
Right. But the problem is with these longer fire seasons, there's less and less time for those kinds of efforts.
So it's like we're fighting a losing battle.
In a way, yes.
Great.
And that's why it's crucial to start addressing the root causes of these increased risks.
Like climate change.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Reducing greenhouse gas emissions is absolutely essential if we want to mitigate the long-term impacts of these events.
But that's a huge undertaking.
It is. But it's a collective effort. It requires action at all levels, from individual choices to community initiatives to global policy changes.
It feels like we're at a turning point.
I agree. We can't just keep doing things the way we always have and expect things to get better.
So what can we do, like right now?
Well, one of the simplest but most important things is to stay informed. Keep an eye on the news, follow weather updates, and pay attention to what local officials are saying.
Okay.
Knowledge is power. And in these situations, it can literally save lives.
So stay informed and then spread the word.
Exactly. Talk to your family, friends, neighbors. Let them know about the risks and what they can do to prepare.
Got it.
And remember, there are tons of resources out there to help. Your local fire department, emergency management agencies, even online communities, they all offer valuable information and support.
It can feel overwhelming, but it sounds like there are concrete steps we can take to make a difference.
There are. And never underestimate the power of your own voice. Advocate for change, support policies that address climate change, and hold our leaders accountable.
So it's about making those everyday choices and understanding that they have a bigger impact.
Exactly. Every action, no matter how small, contributes to a more sustainable future.
So for those of you listening right now, what sticks out to you from all this? What are you thinking about?
What's got your gears turning? Yeah, think about the Franklin fire. Remember those images of the flames just racing up the hillsides?
Oh, yeah. It was crazy.
It's scary how fast those fires can move.
Especially in those kinds of conditions.
Yeah, exactly. Even with the best firefighters in the world, it's going to be tough to contain a fire with those winds.
So it's like a perfect storm of factors here.
Pretty much.
But it makes you wonder how often we actually see these kinds of wind-driven fires in January.
Well, historically, they've been pretty rare.
Okay.
Since 2016, there have only been a handful of smaller fires. Nothing too major.
Right.
But, there was that big one east of L.A. back in 2014.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
It destroyed a bunch of homes.
So this red flag warning we've got going on right now, it's in effect through Thursday, maybe even Friday. That's super unusual for this time of year.
It really is. It just goes to show how these changing weather patterns are really throwing us a curveball.
So it's not just about this one windstorm.
No, it's about what this tells us about the future.
Yeah.
What could happen with fire seasons in California?
Are you saying this could become like the new normal?
It's definitely a possibility. We know that the climate crisis is leading to more extreme weather events.
Right.
And that includes longer and more intense fire seasons.
So what can we do? Like, how do we adapt to that?
Well, there are a few things we can do on a community level.
Okay.
Investing in better early warning systems, for one.
So like the red flag warnings we've been talking about?
Exactly. The fact that we're getting these warnings days in advance is huge.
Yeah, it gives everyone time to prepare.
Exactly. People can charge their devices, stock up on supplies, figure out their evacuation routes, all that important stuff. But it also gives firefighters a chance to get ready. Pre-position their resources and come up with strategic plans.
So it's all about maximizing our preparedness and response.
Exactly. And it's not just about reacting to these events as they happen either.
Okay.
We need to be proactive about reducing the risks in the long term.
So like what kind of things are we talking about?
Well, land management is a big one. Things like controlled burns and vegetation management.
To reduce the amount of fuel for the fires?
Exactly. But the problem is with these fire seasons getting longer and longer, there's less and less time to do that kind of work.
So it's kind of a catch-22?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to start addressing the root causes of these increased risks.
You're talking about climate change?
Exactly. We need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions if we want to mitigate the long-term impacts of these events.
But that's a huge undertaking.
It is, but it's a collective effort. It requires action at every level, from individual choices to community initiatives to global policy changes.
It feels like we're at a turning point.
I agree. We can't just keep doing things the same way and expect things to get better.
So what can we do right now, like today?
Honestly, one of the simplest but most important things is to stay informed. Pay attention to the news, follow weather updates, listen to what local officials are saying. Knowledge is power. And in these situations, it can be life-saving.
So stay informed and then tell everyone you know.
Exactly. Talk to your family, your friends, your neighbors. Spread the word about the risks and how to prepare.
Got it.
And don't forget about all the resources that are out there. Your local fire department, emergency management agencies, even online communities can provide valuable information and support.
It can feel overwhelming, but it sounds like there are actually concrete steps we can take to make a difference.
There are. And never underestimate the power of your own voice.
Yeah.
Advocate for change, support policies that address climate change, and hold our leaders accountable.
It's all about taking action.
Exactly. Even small actions can make a difference. It all adds up to a more sustainable future.
So for those of you listening right now, what's sticking with you from all this?
Yeah. What's got you thinking?
Maybe you're thinking about how prepared you are, if something like this were to happen.
Right. Or maybe you're thinking about the bigger picture, like climate change and what it means for where you live.
Totally. So besides stocking up on batteries and, figuring out those evacuation routes, what else can people do?
Well, one of the most important things is to stay informed. Keep up with the news, the weather reports, and what officials are saying.
Okay.
You know what they say? Knowledge is power.
It's true.
And in these kinds of situations, it can really make a difference.
So stay informed and then spread the word.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tell your family, your friends, your neighbors, anyone who will listen.
All right, let's get everyone on the same page.
And don't forget, there's so many resources out there to help, your local fire department, emergency management agencies, even online communities.
Oh, yeah, there's a ton of good information out there.
So much. It can feel overwhelming, but it sounds like there are things we can do to make a difference.
There are, and it's important to remember that.
Absolutely. Never underestimate the power of your own voice.
Right. Speak up. Advocate for change.
Exactly. Support policies that address climate change and hold our leaders accountable.
It's all about taking action.
It really is. And remember, even small actions can add up.
They really do. Every little bit helps.
It's about creating a more sustainable future for everyone.
Well said. So as we wrap up our deep dive on this crazy windstorm in Southern California,
Yeah, what a wild situation.
we want to leave you with this thought. What will you do to create a more resilient and sustainable tomorrow?
It's a question worth thinking about.
It is. We hope it inspires you to take action. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.